Hello everyone. In this demo, we're going to take a look at the behavior of both the floor and the ceiling functions, and then review how to round a decimal value correctly to the nearest integer. So as you've seen, neither the floor nor the ceiling function will correctly round a decimal value for you. The floor function essentially always rounds down, and the ceiling function essentially always rounds up. What they'll do is take a decimal value and find the integer both less than and greater than your input, the closest ones that'd be in a number line. So we have a lot of setup work already done here in this demo. There's some prompt lines already in here, and then it's going to let us run things again so we can do some multiple test cases as we're going through this. So let's just first display the floor and ceiling values for the user's input. So we'll say the floor value is, and then make a call to the floor function and give the argument value of num there. And do the same thing with the ceiling value. Say the ceil value is, and then make a call to the ceil function with an argument of num. So this contains a call to the floor function in this line and a call to the ceil function in this line. Both the floor and ceiling functions are in the CMAF library, so we're going to make sure we include that up here with IOStream. We'll get some error messages if we don't do that. And let's just run this with a couple of different test cases to remind us of the behavior of both floor and ceiling. So let's say we input 3.2. The floor value is 3, so again, that's essentially rounding down, and the ceil value is 4. It's essentially rounding up. 3.2 is located between the integers 3 and 4 in a number line, so the floor value is really giving us the closest integer that is less than 3.2, and the ceil value is giving us the closest integer that's greater than 3.2. And if we run this again with 3.7, we should see the same two values of 3 and 4 for both floor and ceiling. Again, 3.7 is between the integers 3 and 4 on a number line. Floor is again rounding down, and ceiling is rounding up. And say we give it negative 3.2 on a number line that's contained between negative 4 and negative 3, which is why you're seeing negative 4 and negative 3 appear for the floor and ceiling values. So again, in each case, neither correctly rounded. They both just either round down for the floor function or round up for the ceiling function. There is a nice way using casting to display the correct rounded value for a decimal. So what we need to do is introduce a branch, since the expression we use is based on whether our value is either positive or negative. So we'll say if num is greater than or equal to 0, we will cast one way to get the rounded value. Else, if the value of num is negative, we'll cast a different way. What we'll do is introduce a variable int rounded. And the way to take a decimal value and round it to the nearest integer is to actually add 0.5 to its value and then cast that to an integer. So again, you should have seen that in the problem set. That is a way to correctly round a decimal value that's positive to the nearest integer. Add 0.5 and then cast to an integer that will display the correct rounded value. So we'll do a cout statement. The correctly rounded value is, and then we'll display the value of rounded. Now, if num is negative, it's a very similar expression. We'll just subtract 0.5. So we'll copy and paste here, and the change would be subtract 0.5 from the value of num, then cast that to an integer. So let's run this with the same test cases we had before. Enter the value of 3.2. We're still going to see the floor and ceiling values be 3 and 4. And then our expression inside of this branch correctly rounded 3.2 to the nearest integer. So let's trace through how it's doing that. We'll take the value of 3.2 for num. It adds 0.5 to it to get 3.7. And then when you cast that to an integer, the decimal part is essentially discarded or truncated. And that's why we're seeing the value of 3. Now we run this again with, say, 3.7. That was one of our other test cases. Floor and ceiling still 3 and 4, and it's correctly rounding that to 4 with this same expression we have here. So tracing through, num is 3.7, you add 0.5 to it, you're up to 4.2, and then through that cast to an integer, you're discarding or truncating the decimal part, and that's why you're seeing the value of 4 appear there. And let's do negative 3.2 for good measure. So floor value negative 4, ceiling value negative 3, and it does correctly round that to negative 3. So just be clear in your mind of the distinction between what floor and ceiling do and this nice expression involving casting to round decimal values to a nearest integer. It's a very helpful way to know how to do that. There's certainly ways that would involve using both floor and ceiling simultaneously in relation to the original value. This is a nice, efficient way to round a decimal value in C++ to the nearest integer using some casting to your advantage.